people are like, so you are simultaneously driving the boat, like kind of making sure the camera's in place and everything, and listening to any questions, like interviewing, kind of doing it all.
Yeah, lots going on.
That is crazy. Watching out for random polar bears who may be swimming in the.
Yeah, yeah, it's fun though. We haven't seen bears yet. I think they're mostly at Eskimo Point, and then hopefully they'll start to move down a little bit.
Yeah.
We can't get up that far into the. We can go just past the fort is about as far as our antennas will reach right now,
Okay.
and then like close to 3 miles that way. It's about as far upriver as we can go. But it's been so good this year. Like
Yeah.
we haven't really had to venture really too far to find the whales.
Right.
Yeah, we've had lots of good times just right out in front. So
This is your first year in Churchill?
I came up in November last November, and I was for 6 months. I lived out on, do you know Parker Fitzpatrick?
Yeah.
I lived out at his cabin at his trap line for 6 months.
Wow.
Yeah, and then came back and went home in May, and then I kind of applied for this job before I left, and then came back in July.
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
so it was good.
Where's home?
Southern Alberta, Brooks, just near Calgary.
Okay.
Yeah. How about you?
I'm from North Bay, Ontario,
Oh, okay.
but I was in Ottawa for 8 years before coming here. I just got here last May.
Oh, okay. Cool. Awesome. Well, I think we are good to go.
Okay.
Your mic should be on. I think there's just that switch there. So yeah, I'll just do good afternoon, everybody. I realized my mic was on that whole time, so they
Oh.
know we're here and they know we're out on the water.
Okay.
And the camera's running, so they know it's another gorgeous day out here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely beautiful.
Another awesome day to be out on the water, and we already got whales coming up here, so
Very cool.
it's perfect. I'm Kyron McIver. We're on the Beluga boat in Churchill, Manitoba, Canada, out on the Churchill River, and my guest today is Karen Blackburn. Is that how you say your last name?
Yes, Karen Blackburn with Parks Canada. I'm the superintendent of Parks Canada's operations here in northern Manitoba.
Cool.
Yeah. Super happy to be out on the water with you today.
It's nice getting people out. I had a gap where it's just myself.
Okay.
So it's a little different. It's nice to have somebody to chat with for the 4 hours.
Yeah.
I'm sure everyone's getting sick of hearing my voice, so nice to switch it up.
Yeah.
All right, looks like we're good to go. And today I think we're gonna go find the whales, see where we got some action, and then just do a little bit of troubleshooting quick and see if we can get that speaker working. We hooked up a speaker so we could hear the whales through the hydrophone,
Okay.
because right now it just goes to the Explorer feed, and then everyone at home could hear them, but I want to be able to hear them too. So
Oh, right.
we just got
so
that
we can
rigged
comment on how amazing they sound.
up. Yeah, and then that kind of is my cue to zip it sometimes if the whales are
Really
singing along. Then yeah, I don't have to be talking over them. So
I was out in my kayak the other day and I could hear them just like sitting out on the water. I could hear them. I didn't have a hydrophone or anything.
I know sometimes you could like
Yeah.
feel it in the Zodiac almost. It echoes through the. Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
I mean, can only imagine if you could hear them above the water, just how loud it'll be. I had my GoPro a couple times and I took a few videos, and as soon as the GoPro touches the water, it's like you're in a different world.
Yeah.
Yeah, all the squawking they're doing down there. It's cool.
That's awesome.
So I'm just trying to.
Yeah, it's amazing. I spent a year living in Tadoussac, which is on the north shore of the St. Lawrence. And it's an area known for whale watching as well. There's a beluga population in the St. Lawrence. It's only about like 300 whales.
Oh, okay.
But there's also like humpback whales, minke whales, fin whales, blue whales. And so it's a pretty amazing area, but the belugas are totally different there. Like they're not the same playful belugas that come up to the boats like they do here. So when I first got here, I was kind of curious to know like why people love the belugas so much here, because I always thought like, oh, it's just like a white back that kind of comes up in the water. They're not spectacular like the humpbacks. And then when I came here and started like going out on Zodiacs and kayaking, I realized like, wow, these belugas are special.
Yeah.
They're like so playful and just curious, and it's like a very unique population. So
Yeah, we heard that too. Some researchers came up and they had done, sitting in the water here, they are doing most of the research was at the St. Lawrence, and I think there was one group and they're planning on coming here, and then they're going to try to set some rules in place for how the distance you had to stay away from the whales. But then it didn't take long. Like, you get out in the water and you realize you'd be doing all kinds of evasive maneuvers if you're out on trying to avoid or stay a certain distance from the whales.
Yeah.
Because they're super inquisitive and they like to come right up to the boat.
Very different environment from the St. Lawrence.
They also said too, they got more like information and stuff, and more content, I guess, to put towards the research here in such a short amount of time compared to years on the St. Lawrence.
Wow.
Like, you just hear the people doing the vocalizations and stuff, they say it's wild. There's way more activity here apparently, and
yeah, it's true, a lot more activity.
That's cool. I think it's around 3,000 whales that come to the estuary here. And then it's Seal River and the Nelson River are the other two, and it's around 57,300. I think they estimated in 04 or something. So
yeah, it's really impressive.
A lot. I think that makes up a pretty large percentage of the world's belugas.
Yeah.
So
absolutely, it's really good to hear that those researchers are coming here to see what the local context is before setting regulations in place and getting that understanding.
Yeah, you wouldn't be able to have a boat out here if they all of a sudden had these rules, because it just make it impossible.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I know in the St. Lawrence it's like, I mean, the rules are in place so you can't approach the whales, but then when they approach you, you're supposed to kind of vacate the area. But here it's just, that's not really practical, because they come up to you all the time, and you can't, if you try and leave the area, they will follow you.
Oh yeah, yesterday was a perfect example. We had a group of large adults, and it was weird. I haven't seen the behavior yet, but they're all in a big group. There's maybe 9 or something of them, and they're all at the surface, and they're spy hopping and jumping around kind of, and pushing each other around and rolling. And we'd just coast up, and I'd put the engine in neutral, and we'd watch them for a few minutes, and then as soon as I kicked it in gear, they'd just turn and come straight for us and follow us around for a few minutes, and then they'd veer off again. They'd lose interest and do their little playing thing, and then I'd sit there in neutral, kick it into gear, and they'd turn over and come. And I don't know how many times we did it with the same group, but yeah, they like to hang out with us, and they're chewing on the cameras all the time, and we get lots of photos coming up of whale teeth. So yeah, it's pretty neat. I didn't know what to expect either coming here. Yeah. So it kind of blew my mind too.
Yeah. I spent a lot of time kayaking out in the river, and I've realized the secret is to paddle backwards, because they will follow you if you're moving, and then if you paddle backwards, then they're you see them approaching, and they come in and try and play with the boat. So
I've heard, they interact a little more. They nudge the paddle boarders and the kayaks, eh?
Yeah.
Someone said yesterday on the message board, they got tossed off the kayak. I think one got a little too much of a nudge.
I've never heard of anyone getting bumped out of their boat.
Really?
Like, I've been bumped before, but it's usually just kind of like, it's not that strong. But I guess if you're not familiar with the waters, then it's...
I wonder too, some people are, maybe they haven't been in a kayak, or they panic.
If you're not a really good experienced paddler.
Big whale coming up to you, it's not up everybody's alley.
It is really important to be in a group, or to have that, like, if you're not comfortable with the waters, just make sure you've got a backup. It's cold water for sure.
Yeah. Although today felt like a nice day to go swimming if I'm gonna pick one. It was super hot out here today.
Yeah.
Cool. So a little calf there. We had a Nay out yesterday.
Nice.
Yeah, she came out and she was saying there's some research done and suggesting the calves stick to one side of the mother always. Like, you'll notice they just hover kind of right on their backs, and the mom will sometimes push them right up out of the water. But they always stick to if it's either right or left, they choose a side. It's kind of cool. They don't ever stick around behind the boat long enough to tell, it seems like, the calves, and they just take a look and then they peel off.
Yeah.
The adults are the ones that hang out the most, it seems like.
Yeah, that's true.
They're the most brave.
So are you at the point now where you can recognize certain whales?
So that's, I'll mention too, like, we have the Citizen Science Project, Beluga Bits.
Yeah.
And that's part of what we're doing out here with the underwater cam. So people at home, they can go as they're watching, and there's a little icon on their screen where they can take snapshots. And then, have you ever met Stefan Peterson?
Yeah, I saw his lecture last week
Oh, okay, yeah, that's
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
He was at the
at the Parks Canada Centre.
Yeah.
It was awesome.
So I think he talked a little bit about it there. That was the main subject I think he's going over. But so yeah, people take the photos and then that they look at them and they're looking for different scars, and lots of them you'll see have big chunks taken out of their dorsal ridge, or
Yeah.
we've seen some with big humps like behind their blowholes or weird patches. Anything basically that sets them apart from the others. And then I don't know. I've tried. Like I've seen some with some pretty gnarly scars that for sure if I seen them again, I'd know. But yeah, I don't know, out of the 3,000 that they say come to the estuary, I like.
It's hard to be able to be like, oh, I know
Yeah.
that one.
Yeah, and I don't know when the peak time is because I know they're still kind of coming.
Yeah.
So you're getting new whales and.
Yeah, it's only been a couple of weeks that it's been like the really playful whales.
Yeah.
I've been out I think 5 or 6 times kayaking, and the first 1 or 2 times it wasn't like, I think there's whales that pass through and don't stay necessarily, and they were kind of like not as relaxed or playful.
Yeah.
So, but now it's like our resident friendly whale population.
They're warming up to everybody, and
Yeah.
because when we were troubleshooting and we're going making sure everything was working, so we were doing test runs, it was kind of the same thing. You'd cruise around and you get the odd one that would come, they'd follow you for a couple minutes and then they'd veer off, and it's totally different now. Like and the feeding frenzies we had about 5 days of the whales feeding, and it was unreal. Like you're
Yeah.
sitting around hundreds of whales just chowing down. It's awesome.
I was in my kayak the other day during a bit of a feeding frenzy, and I was kind of, that was the first time I was a little bit nervous. I was like, I gotta
Yeah.
stay away because
They're up and down.
they're not
and
paying attention to people at
no,
that point. Yeah.
No. Yeah, they don't have any interest, and it's cool though, because when it does die down and they're all fed and their bellies are full, then they'll come and they'll hang out with you. You could see the mood instantly changes,
Yeah.
and all of a sudden they're back to playing around with the boats.
Wow, this is awesome.
Yeah, Sea North 2 yesterday, or no, it wasn't yesterday, it was the day before. They were out, and we brought a group bigger than this of all adults over to the boat. We'll go talk to the people sometimes, and we were doing laps around their boat, and the whales it was unreal. They're following us the whole time and nudging up against the boat and spraying people. And yeah, there's a good amount of them here now.
Yeah, this is huge.
Yeah, Simon's been out with us a few times. I don't know if you've met him in town. Simon G.
I don't know.
Yeah, he's like a photographer from the UK and has been coming to Churchill for 13 years. And I think this is his first year where he was actually down for kind of beluga season. It's
Oh,
always
wow.
been polar bears.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he was pretty blown away. He came out probably 4 or 5 times with us out on the boat.
Yeah, a lot of people come for bear season and then realize that beluga season is even more in my
Yeah.
mind, even more spectacular. So
Yeah.
they come back. So that's really good.
That's the only when I first heard of Churchill, I heard about the beluga whales. So I like to dive, so immediately I was looking if there's a dive shop here, the Paddy Center or something, and there's not. So the next best thing was snorkeling, but
Yeah.
that's when I found out my buddy used to live here, and then put me in touch with Parker, and I ended
Okay.
up for the winter instead of, and I wasn't even here for polar bears either. I got to see a few in November, and then I just was out in the bush for the rest of the winter. So but it worked out. I got to come back and see the belugas in the end. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's nice.
Awesome. Yeah, Churchill definitely has a habit of, people just they're like, oh, I came here for a month in 1978
Yeah.
and I never left.
Yeah, half the people you talk to are ones that are just traveling through, and
Yeah, and they just stayed. It just
Yeah.
has a way of sucking you in.
from all over the place. Like
Yeah.
Belinda from Australia, and like Justin, I've talked to him a few times in town. He's from New Brunswick, and
Yep.
yeah, it's cool. There's something about it, like
Yeah.
for being a little town.
Yeah.
And you've been here for a year, then you said?
Yeah, just over a year.
Yeah. And is that like you're here to stay, or is it just
I'll be here a few years for sure.
yeah?
Yeah, we'll see how long But I mean, it could be one of those things I'll end up staying forever.
Yeah.
So far, I'm really enjoying it.
There's
so
lots to
I have
work
no
to do,
other
I think,
plans.
too, right? So
Yeah.
you guys will be busy all the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
How do you like the winters?
The winters, I mean, the winters are, it's an adjustment, but it's spectacular in the winter as well. And there's so many, like I discovered snowmobiling. I never skidooed that much before coming here. And like, I just got really into that. And it's kind of a time when there's lots of like impromptu community events, like big bonfires in the bush and things like that just don't exist in cities.
Yeah.
And then so just being here for that was really fun, and getting out on the land and seeing more of it. So.
I know that's what I like the most about it is you can go out in places you kind of don't really belong. You learn that pretty quick with the climate and the terrain, and just you'd be struggling if your skidoo broke down or something.
Yeah.
So obviously take precautions, but that was kind of the neat thing for me in the winter was being all the way out there by yourself. It's a totally different experience. Like I don't know where else you'd go to get it really.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. It's so unique. It's it's like wide open, and it's amazing to see like how people adapt and just get out there and enjoy it.
Yeah, I know I said to Parker, we can come all the way out here where there's just nothing. And you wake up in the morning, you got stuff to do. It's like there's, you got lots of things on your plate. Yeah. The time just flies by because you're keeping busy, and it just seems so odd being just out in the middle of nowhere. But
yeah. Well, with parks, that's when we do a lot of our planning for our summer season and our bear season. So in the winter, I'm in because I'm sort of like the overall manager of our operation here. That's when I'm the busiest actually, because I'm doing all of the planning.
Oh, okay.
And parks is I mean, we manage Wapask National Park, and right now it's a very remote park, and there's not a lot of opportunities for visitors to go there. But we're really interested in bringing more people and connecting more Canadians to the park.
Yeah.
So just visioning and planning on what is a realistic visitor experience we could have. That's
where you're not disrupting things too much. Or we talked a little bit about it yesterday. Like it's the largest, the peat moss, like the
denning, maternity denning habitat for polar bears, the largest one in the world. Woo! It's pretty exciting.
Yeah, so there's lots of stuff going on there, so I guess you got to make sure you're doing it right if you are going to have
it's always that balance between our conservation goals and having Canadians enjoy the places that we're protecting for them, sort of thing. So
So is Parks in charge of the programs like for the denning, like tagging and stuff, and keeping track of the mom and cubs and all that kind of stuff? Or
we do have our own research and monitoring program, but we also, there's a number of other researchers, like university researchers and other government researchers, like Environment Canada does a lot of polar bear tracking and that sort of thing. So I would say we're sort of like a component, or a smaller component even, of the larger picture of research that happens in the park.
Oh, okay.
It's actually surprising. This year we did a research and monitoring symposium in Winnipeg focused on Wapask National Park. And there was 60 different researchers, students, and enthusiasts who attended, and it was awesome. It was the biggest one we've had yet, and just having that opportunity for everyone to learn about all of the different research that's happening in the park was really exciting. It's not just polar bears. There's also researchers looking at fox habitat and
caribou and
yeah,
I seen last year out at the CNSC, that's what they were doing. They were doing live capture of fox. I'm not sure exactly what studies they were doing with them, but they had some live traps set to get them, and I don't know how successful they were. I'm sure they probably were able to get a few, but they're pretty tricky.
Yeah.
Those things. And I'm not sure how many there are around town. I know this winter there was loads of them. Like out where we were, it was insane. There's just Arctic fox everywhere.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
I found the same thing. I thought there was a lot, but a lot of the locals have told me that the number of Arctic fox in town have been, or in the Churchill area, has been declining a lot lately. Yeah.
I'm not sure because there's trapping in the area. There's the community trap line. So of course, I guess to get to town, a lot of them gotta make it through that.
Yeah.
And I don't know how if that's increasing or not, but we travel up and down those trails, and you can see there's a fair amount of people that are trapping through the winter. So I'm sure that makes a big difference.
Did you see a lot of red foxes as well?
We've seen, quite a few, I guess. Nothing crazy like the Arctic fox, but actually later in the season they seemed like they were showing up a little bit more. For the first quite a while, it was just Arctic, but then there was a period where there all of a sudden seemed like there's more red fox and cross fox and stuff too. But a lot of it was just because the caribou this year were insane. Did you get to go out and see the big herds of them at all, or?
I didn't actually. I didn't see much in the way of caribou this year.
Oh, really?
But I didn't get out there at the right times or to the right places.
Mm-hmm.
So I have actually, when I first moved here last May, I went for a drive just down Goose Creek Road, and there was 3 caribou just walking across the road. And I was
really?
like, wow, this is wild.
They're so cool. It's such a weird animal when you watch them, because every time I just get a kick out of it. Every time they go to take off, they do like this little weird prancing jump thing, and they trot with their heads up. They look like a show horse or something when they're moving along. But we've seen thousands and thousands and thousands. You're just driving through them on your skidoo, and that seemed to be where a lot of the fox were. And we talked about that yesterday. We were riding on our machines back to town, and Parker was in front of me a little ways, and we looked off the trail, and there's like these humps. It was snowing pretty good too that day, and you could see a fresh caribou kill just in front. And so Parker kept pulling ahead to that, and I slowed down looking at these humps, and they stood up. It was wolves sleeping, and shook. All the snow just blew off them, and then they took off running. And it's because I looked ahead, and Parker, there was a wolverine eating the caribou. So these wolves had killed the caribou, and then the wolverine caught a whiff and moved in. And they won't tangle with those things. So they were waiting their turn, and that wolverine took off. And as soon as it took off and the wolves were gone, a red fox boogied in and was scarfing down a bunch of meat. And then like a couple minutes later, 2 Arctic fox were running in, and it's funny, you just got to see the entire food chain all in a span of 10 minutes. It was pretty cool.
That is amazing. I was asking about the red foxes because research is saying that the red foxes are actually moving in and taking over the habitat of the Arctic foxes. Like they're expanding north.
Yeah, you can tell that they're like. So when we seen those 2, they were hissing, and the Arctic fox, they weren't gonna try to get in there and eat, and they're gonna wait their turn. So. But I guess things are changing out here. Like we were talking about the grizzlies and stuff moving in now, and there's just different animals moving in. And I guess that'll, with things warming up, is for sure part of the issue. But it's going to cause some odd complications. Like with interbreeding between grizzlies and the polar bears. We were talking about that, and I've heard that causes issues because you'll get a crossbreed that wants to eat seals but can't swim or something, right? They adopt some of the characteristics of one, and so it's kind of weird.
And then it's a bear that we don't know much about its behavior or like how to manage that, right?
And so then the other thing too was there's the barren ground grizzly, which you just can't really find anything about it online. I just don't know if there's a lot of whales behind me now.
Yeah, this is amazing. I mean, I come out in my kayak a lot, but it's rare to have, I don't see this kind of numbers because I guess I'm not moving quite fast enough. And this is like...
It's a pretty good group.
A treat for me, for sure.
And, but the regular grizzlies, they said there's been only X amount is like 9 confirmed sightings since '97 or something like that, right?
Yeah, there's still fairly like a very small number at
Yeah.
this point. So
And it seemed like confirmed though is just it has to either be someone that's qualified to make the call, like yeah, that is a grizzly, or you have to have a photo and then have somebody that's qualified. Otherwise, I'm sure they've seen more. They must have, right? But they just can't say for sure because you get like a color-phased black bear or something, and then you can mistake that for a grizzly, I guess, if you don't know what you're looking at. And I think there's quite a bit of black bears here too, isn't there? There's a fair amount.
Yeah, I think a little bit farther south there's more black bears. I don't know that much about. I haven't heard much talk of black bears here.
We seen one in May, I think, or like late April this year on North Knife.
Yeah.
Seemed weird that it was out because everything was still just a block of ice. Like the snow was, there's still a pile of snow. Everything was frozen over.
Yeah.
I think it'd be a struggle for a black bear at that time of year.
I did see a black bear. I had the opportunity to go on a goose hunt with some of the locals at a goose hunting camp, and there was a black bear that was out there to scavenge any remains of geese. Yeah, taking advantage of that migration for sure.
Yeah. We were up north in Red Earth in Alberta this year at camp there, and I was saying like it doesn't even make sense how many black bear there are there.
Yeah.
We were in a fairly small area, and there was easily like 150 bears just in our spot.
Wow.
There's all over the place. You just drive down the road and you get to see black bear everywhere. It's crazy. And I know they're omnivores, but even if they're eating berries and grass, it doesn't seem like there's enough of that to sustain like such a large animal.
Yeah, I know.
And those sorts of numbers. But it does have a big effect on like there is some caribou up there, and then the deer. And,
pretty vocal whales.
Yeah. This is probably a good idea if I pull that speaker out and see if Tim can get that tuned up. I'm sure they're